To be good. Are we good people? It's a Monday. Monday week after Valentine's. Now, a lot of questions. I always answer them. Question and answers. Who was your dad? My dad, original name's Stephen Kasos. Then he adopted new names. This was all about, how do I explain this? My grandmother had my dad when she was young, very, very young. I'm talking young, 1947. So my dad, the Church Missionary Society, they took my dad into the church. They say my grandmother must have been about 14. She went, these things happen. This is life I'm talking about. So after Second World War, 1945, my dad is born 1947. So you can see the situation that was going on in the so-called colonial protectorate before it becomes Uganda. The colonial days, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he comes of age, the early formative years, like 4, 5, 6, growing up, grounded around Christianity. Edini, Mbamisani. Very interesting, isn't it? But he did have a clue who his parents were until my grandmother marries another man. It is alleged that they told my dad a different story growing up. Anyway, there are a lot of things to fill up in there. But I want to bring you to what really transpires in Chitagobwa. Chitagobwa, that's where Muchwenda, that's where my grandmother, a couple of miles in between, that's where she's born. Then she marries and settles in Chitagobwa. So I would say, growing up, my dad attending St. Paul's Primary School, Kitagobwa. Later on going to Wampewo Ntake Senior Secondary. Very good footballer. That's where he meets up with Uncle Patrick Chwanuka. They were in the same school playing football together. And they really bonded well, like brothers, growing up in school. That would take him far and wide to the point that he played against the king, Kabaka Frederick Mutesa, was a very avid footballer. And then he scores a goal against. So the Kabaka team lost. But they became friends thereafter. That friendship with the Kabaka would later on get him a scholarship to study at the prestigious Bukalasa Agricultural Institute. Yeah, where he majors in auditing and finance, accounting. 1965, class of 1965 Mengo Senior School. You know Mengo? It going to study at Mengo Senior School back in the days was. So while in Mengo, he was the head prefect, head boy of his year. So he made a lot of friends. Kati. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, the king, he didn't abdicate, he didn't leave. There was a 1966 crisis at Lubidi. Then the king had to flee to UK here, subsequently passing away in 69 while he was here. So that really shook my dad. It shook him. And during the UPC Congress at Lugogo, be bali oba youth bayingira ekintu kyobote but he had brought this youth wing, whatever, things like the socialist things and all that. There's a lot of things going on in Uganda at the time. Now, that is post-independence era, people. He's a young boy at that time now, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yes. So when they return, the remains of the king, having passed away in the UK, that's 1971. So by then, my dad is now working in the Mango Growers Cooperative Union, where he was very, very instrumental in shaping the direction of the whole organization financially, to the point that it was so successful, he had to pursue the dividing of Mango into East and West, building the headquarters along Ginger Road. Very, very pristine building. My Ngali 20, he was 20, 23, 24. Yeah, because in 72, he was 24 when he married my mom. And subsequently, he would resign to start business. Yeah, having done that as an achievement, he felt like he was far ahead to go into business in the 70s, the whole of the 70s era. There was a very big gap once the Asians were asked to leave in 72 by the president at the time, Idi Amin. The expulsion of the Asians, that's what it was called, the economic war. So there was a very, very big gap in the economy. So my dad would venture into business, setting up Zinalaba General Merchants, very big coffee conglomerate. Imwanya kase bamafuta mingi na kola sente mpitirivu nyonyo. Remember, initially there was this thing, the middleman thing, that had been the precursor during the colonial. Uganda Farmers Association, Uganda National Congress, bamusazi bonna pre-war and pre-independence. If you go back in the history of Uganda and how it was shaped, Mwemuva UPC, Uganda People's Congress, now history mungi nnyo. So my dad falls in that bracket. Kakati agaggawadde in the 70s. I'm born in 72, people. And my mom was very young. It was a love affair. Because the wedding of the year 1972 was my dad's wedding, and it's never been replicated again. It has never. Even the president at the time, Idi Amin, made an eavesdrop, because the whole of Kampala was electrified. I knew again. Who's he? So Idi Amin was known for doing impromptu things. So he came to the Namirembe Cathedral, n'alaba embaga eyo. Even John and Lumu, the bishop, bagatta Church of Uganda. So let me take you back a little bit. The first thing my dad did after the windfall, after the first thing Ofunye said, once you earning big, he was young. He builds the mom a very nice house. Enyumba yekitagobwe yetegula. Nagizimbira mama we. Very pristine house, very beautiful house. Bigenda kukomawo later on, kubanga yabikolanga tataddeko byapa. This is going to haunt him 1990 when he passes away. So kakati, of course, things were getting big. Business was being big. Azimbe churches, nazimbe ekanisa, ekitagobwa, St. Paul's, nazimbe ekanisa ekyebando, netuzimbe nazimbe nyumba ekyebando. So many things were happening in his life. So I'm moving fast because there's a lot in the story. People were asking me, Tata Yariani. So after 1979, when we returned back from exile, because we jumped ship, went to Kenya. Kenya in nyumba. We must have sold it because we were staying in a very affluent area. Kilereshwa, jenasoma jetandika kusoma. Mama Angolo ngazeya asoma East African Civil Service College, where she completes her studies in secretarial, ending up as a company secretary in Spring Valley Farms. No zamula wajenva. You people. Story of Pamvu. My dad was not to be joked with. He was a very, very principled man. A very principled man. I don't know why. Chanda. Oh, the Chanda name is the one he was given when my grandmother marries into, starts another life. Ngamuto. The one was Simpson William Kyanda. Actually, Kyanda is not even a name. Kyanda, it is a saying. There is no name called Kyanda. It's not a name. In the 80s, my dad gets bigger in business. Naingira mafuta, Uganda Petroleum, UPET. How naona mtegera wao. Naagula shares in Lake Victoria Bottling. He becomes an industrialist. Abafuna chance okutegeera family yaffe ekyebando bo balabanga bulabi motoka zifuluma ku macha, convoy of cars, Mercedes Benz, Vauxhall, whatever. Twalina Vauxhall saloon, twalina Volkswagen combi esomba ebisagazina, errands, shopping and stuff like that. Very, very nice. Abafunako chance okujja ewaffe balaba bulamu nga tebakutegeera nabutegeezi, nga tebategeera shopping, Drapers Gund building. Mumanyi Drapers awali Crane Towers, Crane Bank yali Kampala Road, yali departmental store ng'ogulawo by order, bagagga be bagulawo. N'ebintu ebyo byavanga e London ebirungi byani byonna, Diamond Trust byani byonna batweteranga engoye okuva e London, St. Michael's, British Home Stores bitwambala ku Buganda Road mwandabanga, yambalanga everything designer. Bwe baguzeeko ekintu nga tugenda ku Jumbo Arcade awo ku Nile Mansions, no yali UPC House. Then you had Nile Grill, awalinga restaurant, awatulanga the who's who, bachala baba minister na bachala bagagga. Then there was an arcade, things like that. Akati business wise, that my dad goes into real estate. Nagula mataka mangi nnyo Bunamwaya, Makindi, Rukuli, tulina faamu, Kakiri, everywhere just investing money. Naye kyesinnababuulira nti although he was a very big financier, bonna bamugalu ani bonna ayingira mupiira aguddamu. He was an avid supporter of KCC Football Club. Ne bamwana ba patron supporters nga tutuula ku gundi ku clubhouse opposite Pioneer Mall walingawo ka mall awo ako kaali kagundi. It was like a lounge, a clubhouse. Then nefuka arcade yali KCC. My dad yavuga ekintu ekyo bafunewo ng'ayita mu mayor's office. Remember Walusimbi Mpanga, he had been the longest serving mayor, so the connections were there. Era yaggalawo Kampala Road mu 72 during my dad's wedding. Ne bagidecorating yonna. There was a convoy abantu bajja balaba embaga bava mu Afro studio for the pictures. Yeah, for the pictures. Munfuna bulungi nnyo. Wedding pictures. Then the reception was at Silver Springs Hotel, Bugolobi. Band yakuba. Mwemuva Firigo. Small World Band. I'm talking of a live band. But never digida. Embaga nevao, ne de rugogo. Yaina receptions ibiri. Because people were so many. Embaga yaina reception ibiri. It was too much. The wedding of the year. No one has ever done that wedding again in Uganda. No one. And me, I was born like 2 months later. My mom was pregnant. She was pregnant. Chovana ndozayaga nnyo music. Kubanga, of course, waliwo scandal. Mubimanyi bino ebyaba ex-lover byani byonna waliwo omukyala tata wange yali ayagala byani byonna, mubitegeera. She turns up at the wedding, uninvited. Era bwe mutunuulira ebifaananyi, my dad was cutting the cake, serving it. Then she appears from nowhere, dressed very, very. Mubimanyi abakazi mubikola nnyo. Yali ayambadde akateeteeyi. Naka revealing everything. So, but that was it. That was the fracas. Nebinyiza mama wange. Babinyumya. Abantu babinyumya bagana Kyanda chichi wakola night. Night is my mom. What did you do to your missus? My mom was young. She was only 16. 16. when the stories are told, but of course, it's many years ago. But these are all things inked in people's memories. They covered that up. If you look at the pictures, you can see that she was pregnant. So I'm going about part two. I'm just picking out things. Kati mu 80s, my dad begins to slow down. Ngoragagawa. Naye kyengenda obaita mu 80s, yateeka ssente mu lutalo lwa Museveni. Mpitirivu nnyo. Ezo tezadda. Lwalimu ba financier. The stakeholders. The peace talks the 1985 ezaali Kenya, there were spoils of war. Olutalo lwali lwawangulwa dda mu 85. Kekapiira, the football match between Express and KCC on the 23rd of November 1985. The morale of the country was so down, so they really had to bring. Moses Salwe babirimu nga babizanye left, right and center. Naye kebajjako bote mu July that very year 85. Nekuddako sijui amagye nekuddayo nana that was all gymnastics. They wanted it. Kati Museveni olutalo lwo lwali they needed a dramatic entry. Okuwamba Kampala. Naye Kampala bali bagiwambadde mukimanyi ekyo abatetekimanyi. It was already divided. The eastern, western, Kansanga, sijui bani bonna eyo. Kampala, temujjukira bintu bino. Temujjukira bintu bino. Do you remember these things? 8 to 5. Kampala was divided already. The stakes were high. So, and then everything was put in rehearsal. So the pictures you see when everybody's marching along, no, those they had to stage things to give that really impact. So those things were all being talked about. So that's going to be in part 2 of this question and answer. Who was your dad? He was young. At 40, he takes ill, cancer. Our story. So, he would have loved to Babe bamu ku nabayita ba billionaire elites. Mujjukira synopsis story. Yeah. Bastek gundi abaatuula wansi ne bagamba nti no olutalo luli worth the effort. Naye tugenda kuluzinga ebintu bingi. Yeah. That is what I can recall. Basabanga misa, things were done, things with prayers and everything. I went to Agaraganyum 7. My dad especially, I'm Agaraganyum. Yajjako ne ku farm yaffe Kakiri. I remember. 1985 Kabaka akomawo. Yajjako ne waffe ekyebando but he stayed at Katalemwa. Nabagamba ekintu kino. Katalemwa Uncle Patrick. Before then, nadda ku Buganda Road waliwo bu apartments. Uncle Patrick alina bu apartments. Buganda Road wano we wali KPC mu corner wote. As the road continues, waliwo bu apartment obulungi nnyo bulalinga miti. Then the rest is as it is. Naye Kabaka yalina okuddayo e London n'akomawo e London. But that was to window dress the Baganda. Abaganda bakakase nti ne Kabaka ekintu akirimu. But it was all about money. Nze mbabuulidde, it was all about money. Nali mwana muto, byenjogera mbijjukira bulungi nnyo. Nali mwana muto nga mbiraba babyogeraawo, and that is it. But my dad was a very laid back person. Omugagga w'ekyebando. Kyebando awali Homes Darling. Awo nawona wali waffe essomero. Ennyumba yaffe yettegula n'ennyumba zonna eziriwo awo zonna n'ebyaye butamanyi. Twalinawo Kyebando mixed farm awo nowaliwo farm. Farm yali ya mami nga ya nkoko n'ente, twalinawo ente nga 10. Frisian cows amata. Things like that. Hello, coach. Yeah. And that is it. Ask me any question you want. I'll give you an answer. Ng'abaana banti e Buganda Road nga banneegomba olwegomba. Nati banonelanga mu Benz, nagiranga mu Benz. Ganda emikwano mingi. I was down to earth. Very down to earth. So I'm going to give you part 2 of this quick story about my dad. Yes. Yagabirako ne Benz church Nangabo diocese. Is it Nangabo diocese? Bino byetulaba nti n'abantu bagenda basabiriza president. Where are the rich people? Mulida abagagga mugabe ku zi Benz. Muzikabe. Bishop Kityo. Yeah, that's the name I remember, Kityo. Nami kwano gya muzeeyi wange n'ekyeba ne tuzimbawo church. Naye kama ocha St. John's Church. If you go to St. John's Church, waliwo sekza taata wange mpitirivu nnyo. Ne bamusabiranga atandise okulwala. Reverend Kisembo omukyala oyo bamuleeta ku church bagimukwasa ngoba yakamaliza ha studies yeah, pastoral whatever yeah Reverend Kisembo, she was a lady yaliwo nnyo for our family. St. John's Church, I will go there one day and thank them. Yeah. But my dad was part of the foundation of that church. You always need people to put money on the table. You know, you're fundraising every week, blah blah blah. Oh no, I'll do this. So, but when my dad took ill, they came. They used to come every week, pray for him, blah 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 blah. Even when my mom got ill, ngamba kamocha, Upper Mawanda Road, kalina eri ku corner ng'ova ku police ward. That was a fe tusooka waawo. That house was built by my mom. It was a dream house. Olwo afunye omulimu, her first job working with Spring Valley Farms. Uganda Development Corporation. Uncle Paulo Mwanga, yari family, part of our family friend. Ye neighbor waffe. Nena azimba next to us. Wali wansi nga waliwo Dr. Simpson Chiseka. The other side is Doctor's Village. Nozamulaba wetwaye tubeera upscale. Chiraba. The house is still there. A bank agitwala. That's another story, people. That's another story. So, my mom came from very far. From Bukoro to Butambala. And she didn't have an easy start. She came to Kampala with her family. She was around 10 years old. Yes, 10, 12 years old. So she saw the bright lights for the first time. Amasanyalaze in Kampala. That's what they mean. You come and see the bright lights. Tomilabagako, Bewegombe Chibuga, Ababa de Mubiaro. Neya Tuzayo, 1984. I remember. 1984. Ngavuga Mercedes Benz. Avayo Galina Mubigere, my mom. Our sister Mugaga billionaire. Even though we are one. Mumanye your family, mumanye your family. Yari mo mutima, abantu baletekawo mutima mubi, you know. But she was lucky, you know. She was lucky. My dad and my mom were a match made in heaven. By love. Etala duangana konga bagabana Kyanda oyagala nnyo mukazi wo Kyanda tulumya Kyanda mukazi wo buli kimu kimukolera yes nga balinga I don't know, I've never seen kubanga baali baana bato nazo sente bwezifuna ng'oli muto ate ng'oli you are paired up nicely. Nze nafuna sente nga ndi mwana naye nazannyiramu kegus nazizannyiramu nnyo sente zange nzimbira bakazi mayumba ngagaba amaliza. I didn't care. I mean, I didn't care. Kwe kujje London. That's how I ended up in the UK. It was a love story. Girlfriend, blah blah, shopping, this and that, Mercedes Benz present and all that. I'll give you my story. I've written many things.
That's my point.
That's the dramatic part of things. So, abalaba ku maama wange ng'alinga muzungu. Abeera nabo bagundi bamage Kigozi, gyegyali mikwano gye Sarah, Bulwadda, n'abalala bangi nnyo. Kyanda. She was very young. She was very young. Naye kakati to date, ompeeyo omwana wa 16 nti awasambaga tekiriiyo. It's just got to be something that brings two people together. Ng'abantu ku Sunday waffe wabeerawo dinner. Manyi dinner ekijulo ne ba bishop ne bajja babawo bubaasa I mean baba kasente. That give away. Kati nga mzee wange amaze okunywamu ku whisky banywanga Grants ne VAT 69 nga bamujja ku Ame shop mujimanyi oba mu foods and beverages gye bagulanga emyenge egyo egyebbeeyi gye banywa n'abagenyi bonna babeerangawo Kyanda agabudde. That time nga tusabira gundi St. Peters nga wala nnyo okutambulayo. Taata wange nagamba naye tufune church wano okumpi wano kati kwe kuzimba ya St. Peters Kalitunsi. St. Peter's Church ye Kalitunsi naye eriko sente za muzeeyi wange mpitirivu nnyo. Ate kakati ekizibu ekiriwo nti yakolanga ebintu out of generosity tiyabiteekangamu accountability nti muwandiike mukole ki no. Eyo church ya omukazi awaayo ettaka lya church eyo yali mukwano gwa muzeeyi wange. That church sits on land gifted by a friend of my dad, a lady. Then they built the church. China Kitoogo, St. Peter's Church, kalituuse ekyebando. Ebyo ebibeerawo mboozi mpanvu. It's a long story. So aneka kati tugenda okuva ekyebando mu 89. Twava ekyebando gatata, my dad is getting ill. Nagaa tugenda tusula mu nnyumba gye bazimba ye upper Manda. They were building a house, the double-storied house in Kamwokya. Twajingira bagizimba. And even when he passed away in 1990, those who came, half of the house upstairs was still being built. You get me? That's 1990 September. Anyway, guys, have a nice one.